Hi, I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm starting at the bottom of the second paragraph on page 264. This is a quote by Dr. C.G. Jung. When a religious method recommends itself as scientific, it can be certain of its public in the West. Yoga fulfills this expectation, Dr. Jung writes. Quite apart from the charm of the new and the fascination of the half-understood, there is a good cause for yoga to have many adherents. It offers the possibility of controllable experience and thus satisfies the scientific need for facts. And besides this, by reason of its breadth and depth, its venerable age, its doctrine and method, which include every phase of life, it promises undreamed of possibilities. Every religious or philosophical practice means a psychological discipline, that is, a method of mental hygiene. The manifold, purely bodily procedures of yoga also mean a psychological hygiene which is superior to ordinary gymnastics or breathing exercises. Inasmuch as it is not merely mechanistic and scientific, but also philosophical in its training of the parts of the body, it unites them with the whole of the spirit, as is quite clear, for instance, in the pranayama exercises, where prana is both the breath and the universal dynamics of the cosmos. Yoga practice would be ineffectual without the concepts on which yoga is based. It combines the bodily and the spiritual in an extraordinarily complete way. In the East, where these ideas and practices have developed, and where for several thousand years an unbroken tradition was created the necessary spiritual foundations, yoga is, as I can readily believe, the perfect and appropriate method for fusing the body and mind together so that they form a unity which is scarcely to be questioned. This unity creates a psychological disposition which makes possible intuitions that transcend consciousness. The Western day is nearing. In the inner science of self-control will be found as necessary as the outer conquest of nature. The atomic age will see men's minds sobered and broadened by the now scientific, indisputable truth that matter is in reality a concentration of energy. The human mind can and must liberate within itself energies greater than those within stones and metals, lest the material atomic giant, newly unleashed, turn on the world in mindless destruction. An indirect benefit of mankind's concern over atomic bombs may be an increased practical interest in the science of yoga, a bomb-proof shelter, truly. The beginning, chapter 25, Brother Anatta and Sister Nalini. Anatta cannot live. The sands of his karma for this life have run out. These exhortable words reached my inner consciousness as I sat one morning in deep meditation. Shortly after I had entered the Swami order, I paid a visit to my birthplace, Gorakhpur, as the guest of my elder brother Anatta. A sudden illness confined him to his bed. I nursed him lovingly. The solemn inward pronouncement filled me with grief. I felt that I could not bear to remain longer in Gorakhpur, only to see my brother removed before my helpless gaze. Amidst the incomprehending criticism from my relatives, I left India on the first available boat. It cruised along Burma and the China Sea to Japan. I disembarked at Kobe, where I spent only a few days. My heart was too heavy for sightseeing. On the return trip to India, the boat touched at Shanghai. There, Dr. Misra, the ship's physician, guided me to several curio shops where I selected various presents for Sri Yukteswar and my family and friends. For Anatta, I purchased a large carved bamboo piece No sooner had the Chinese salesman handed me the bamboo souvenir than I dropped it on the floor, crying out, "I bought this for my dear dead brother." A clear realization had swept over me that his soul was just being freed in the infinite. The souvenir was sharply and symbolically cracked by its fall amidst sobs. I wrote on the bamboo surface, "For my beloved Anata, now gone." My companion, the doctor, had been observing me with a sardonic smile. "Save your tears," he remarked. "Why shed them until you are sure he is dead?" When our boat reached Calcutta, Dr. Misra again accompanied me. My youngest brother, Bijnu, was waiting to greet me at the dock. "I know Anata has departed this life," I said to Bijnu before he had time to speak. "Please tell me and the doctor here where Anata died." Bijnu named the date, which is the very date that I had bought the souvenirs in Shanghai. "Look here," Dr. Misra ejaculated. "Don't let any word of this get out. The professors will be adding a year's study of mental telepathy to the medical course, which is already long enough." Father embraced me warmly as I entered our home. "You have come," he said tenderly. 2 large tears dropped from his eyes. Ordinarily undemonstrative, he had never before shown me these external signs of affection. Outwardly the grave father, inwardly he possessed the melting heart of a mother. In all family affairs he played this dual paternal role. Soon after Anata's passing, my younger sister Nalini was brought back from death's door by a divine healing. Before relating the story, I will refer to a few phases of our earlier life. The childhood relationship between Nalini and me had not been of the happiest nature. I was very thin, she was still thinner still, though through an unconscious motive that psychologists will have no difficulty in identifying. I would often tease my sister about her appearance. Her retorts would be equally imbued with the callous frankness of extreme youth. Sometimes Mother would intervene, temporarily ending the childish quarrels by a gentle box on my ear, which as the elder ear. Soon her school years were over. After her school years were over, Nalini was betrothed to Dr. Panchanan Bose, a likable young physician of Calcutta. Elaborate marriage rites were celebrated in due time. On the wedding night, I joined the large, jovial group of relatives in the living room of our Calcutta home. The bridegroom was leaning on an immense gold-brocaded pillow with Nalini at his side. A gorgeous purple silk sari could not, alas, wholly hide her angularity. I sheltered myself behind the pillow of my new brother-in-law and grinned at him in a friendly fashion. He had never seen Nalini until the day of the nuptial ceremony. When he finally learned what he was getting in the matrimonial lottery. Feeling my sympathy, Dr. Bose pointed obtrusively to Nalini and whispered in my ear, "Say, what's this?" "Why, doctor," I replied, "it is a skeleton for your observation." As the years went on, Dr. Bose endeared himself to our family, who called on him whenever illness arose. He and I became fast friends, often joking together, usually with Nalini as our target. "It is a medical curiosity," my brother-in-law remarked to me one day. "I have tried everything on your lean sister. Cod liver oil, butter, malt, honey, fish, meat, eggs, tonics. Still she fails to bulge even 1/100th of an inch." A few days later I visited the Bose home. My errand there took only a few minutes. I was leaving unnoticed, I thought, by Nalini. As I reached the front door, I heard her voice, cordial but commanding. "Brother, come here. You are not going to give me the slip this time. I want to talk to you." I mounted the stairs to her room. To my surprise, she was in tears. "Dear brother, let us bury the old hatchet. I see that your feet are now firmly set on the spiritual path. I want to become like you in every way." She added hopefully, "You are now robust in appearance. Will you help me? My husband does not come near me, and I love him so dearly, but my chief desire is to progress in God realization, even if I must remain thin and unattractive." My heart was deeply touched by her plea. Our new friendship steadily progressed. One day she asked to become my disciple. "Train me in any way you like. I put my trust in God instead of tonics." She gathered together an armful of medicines and poured them down a drain outside her window. As a test of her faith, I asked her to omit from her diet all fish, meat, and eggs. After several months, during which Nalini had strictly followed the various rules I had outlined and had adhered to her vegetarian diet in spite of numerous difficulties, I paid her a visit. "Sis, you have been conscientiously observing the spiritual injunctions. Your reward is near." I smiled mischievously. "How plump do you want to be? As fat as our aunt, who hasn't seen her feet in years?" "No, but I long to be as stout as you are," I replied solemnly. "By the grace of God, as I have spoken truth always, I speak truly now. Through the divine blessings your body shall verily change from today. In 1 month it shall have the same weight as mine." These words from my heart found fulfillment. In 30 days Nalini's weight equaled mine. The new roundness gave her beauty. Her husband fell deeply in love. Their marriage began so inauspiciously turned out to be ideally happy. On my return from Japan, I learned that during my absence Nalini had been stricken with typhoid fever. I rushed to her home and aghast to find her extremely emaciated. She was in a coma. My brother-in-law told me, before her mind became confused by illness, she often said, "If my brother Mukunda were here, I would not be faring thus." He added tearfully, "The other doctors and I see no ray of hope. After her long bout with typhoid, blood dysentery has now set in." I tried to move heaven and earth with my prayers, engaging an Anglo-Indian nurse who gave me full cooperation. I applied to my sister various yoga methods of healing. The blood dysentery vanished, but Dr. Bose shook his head mournfully. "She simply has no more blood left to shed." "She will recover," I replied stoutly. In 7 days her fever will be gone." A week later I was still thrilled to see Nalini open her eyes and gaze at me with loving recognition. From that day her recovery was swift. Although she regained her usual weight, she bore one sad scar of her nearly fatal illness. Her legs were paralyzed. Indian and English specialists pronounced her a hopeless cripple. The incessant war for her life that I had waged by prayer had exhausted me. I went to Sriramapur to ask Sri Yukteswar's help. His eyes expressed deep sympathy as I told him of Nalini's plight. "Your sister's legs will be normal at the end of 1 month," he added. Let her wear next to her skin a band with an unperforated 2-carat pearl held on by a clasp." I prostrated myself at his feet with joyful relief. "Sir, you are a master. Your word that she will recover is enough. But if you insist, I will immediately get her a pearl." My guru nodded. "Yes, do that." He went on to describe correctly the physical and mental characteristics of Nalini, whom he had never seen. "Sir," I inquired, "is this an astrological analysis? You do not know her birthday or hour." "Sir," I inquired. Sri Yukteswar smiled. "There is a deeper astrology, not dependent on the testimony of calendars and clocks. Each man is a part of the Creator or cosmic man. He has a heavenly body as well as one of earth. The human eyes see the physical form, but the inner eye penetrates more profoundly, even to the universal pattern of which each man has an integral and individual part. I returned to Calcutta and purchased a pearl for Nalini. A month later, her paralyzed legs were completely healed. Sister asked me to convey a heartfelt gratitude to my guru. He listened to the message in silence, but as I was taking my leave, he made a pregnant comment. Your doctor has been told by many doctors she can never bear children. Assure her that within a few years she will give birth to 2 daughters. Some years later, to Nalini's joy, she bore a girl, and a few months later another daughter. Chapter 26. The Science of Kriya Yoga. The science of Kriya Yoga, mentioned so often in these pages, became widely known in modern India through the instrumentality of Lahara Mahasaya, my guru's guru. The Sanskrit root of Kriya is Kri, to do, to act, and react. The same root is found in the word karma, the natural principle of cause and effect. Kriya Yoga is thus union, yoga in parentheses, with the infinite through a certain action or rite, kriya. A yogi who faithfully practices the technique is gradually freed from karma and the lawful chain of cause and effect equilibriums. Because of certain ancient yogic injunctions, I may not give a full explanation of Kriya Yoga in a book intended for the general public. The actual technique should be learned from an authorized Kriyaban of Self-Realization Fellowship, Yogona Sagasta Sat Sangha Society of India. Here a broad reference must suffice. Okay, and this is a photograph of Sri Dayamata in Divine Communion. Kriya Yoga is a simple psychophysiological method by which human blood is decarbonated and recharged with oxygen. The atoms of this extra oxygen are transmuted into life current to rejuvenate the brain and spinal centers. By stopping the accumulation of venous blood, the yogi is able to lessen and prevent the decay of tissues. The advanced yogi transmutes his cells into energy. Elijah, Jesus, Kabir, and other prophets were past masters in the use of Kriya or a similar technique by which they cause their bodies to materialize and dematerialize at will. Kriya is an ancient science. Lahari Masaya received it from his great guru Babaji, who rediscovered and clarified the technique after it had been lost in the Dark Ages. Babaji renamed it simply Kriya Yoga. The Kriya Yoga that I am giving to the world through you in this 19th century, Babaji told Lahari Masaya, is a revival of the same science that Krishna gave millenniums ago to Arjan, and that was later known to Pantajali and Christ and to St. John, St. Paul, and other disciples. Kriya Yoga is twice referred to by Lord Krishna. India's greatest prophet in the Bhagavad Gita. One stanza reads, offering the inhaling breath into the exhaling breath, and offering the exhaling breath into the inhaling breath, the yogi neutralizes both breaths. Thus he releases prana from the heart and brings life force under his control. Your interpretation is: the yogi arrests decay in the body by securing an additional supply of prana (life force). Through quieting the action of the lungs and the heart, he also arrests mutations of the growth in the body by controlling the apana (eliminating current). Thus, neutralizing decay and growth, the yogi learns life force control. Another Gita stanza states that meditation expert (Muni) becomes eternally free, who, seeking the supreme goal, is able to withdraw from external phenomena by fixing his gaze within the mid-spot of the eyebrows and by neutralizing the even currents of prana and apana (that flow within the nostrils and lungs), and to control his sensory mind and intellect, and to banish desire, fear, and anger. Krishna also relates that it is he, in a former incarnation, who communicated the indestructible yoga to an ancient Illuminato Vivasvat, who gave it to Manu, the great legislator. He in turn instructed Ikshwaku, founder of India's solar warrior dynasty. Passing thus from one to another, the royal yoga was guarded by the rishis until the coming of the materialistic ages. Then, because of priestly secrecy and man's indifference, the sacred lore gradually became inaccessible. Kriya Yoga is mentioned twice by the ancient sage Patanjali, foremost exponent of yoga. He wrote, "Kriya Yoga consists of bodily discipline, mental control, and meditating on Om." Patanjali speaks of God as the actual cosmic sound of Om that is heard in meditation. Om is the creative word, the whir of the vibratory motor, the witness of divine presence. Even the beginner in yoga may soon hear the wondrous sound of Om. Through this blissful spiritual encouragement, he becomes convinced that he is in communion with supernal realms. Patanjali refers a second time to the Kriya technique or life force control thus: liberation can be attained by that pranayama which is accomplished by disjoining the course of inspiration and expiration. St. Paul knew Kriya Yoga, or a similar technique, by which he could switch life currents to and from the senses. He was therefore able to say, "I protest by our rejoicing which I have in Christ. I protest by our rejoicing which I have in Christ. I die daily." And that is Corinthians 1:15-31. By a method of centering inwardly all bodily forces, which ordinarily are directed only outwardly, to the sensory world, thus lending a seeming validity, St. Paul experienced daily a true yoga union with the rejoicing (bliss) of the Christ consciousness, in which felicitous state he was conscious of being dead or freed from sensory delusions, the world of Maya. In the initial states of God communion, the devotee's consciousness merges in the cosmic spirit. His life force is withdrawn from the body, which appears dead, or motionless and rigid. The yogi is fully aware of his bodily condition of suspended animation. As he progresses to higher spiritual states, however, he communes with God without bodily fixation and in his ordinary waking consciousness, even in the midst of exacting worldly duties. Kriya Yoga is an instrument through which human evolution can be quickened. Sri Yukteswar explained to his students, The ancient yogis discovered that the secret of cosmic consciousness is intimately linked with breath mastery. This is India's unique and deathless contribution to the world's treasury of knowledge. The life force, which is ordinarily absorbed in maintaining heart action, must be freed for higher activities by a method of calming and stilling the ceaseless demands of the breath. The Kriya Yogi mentally directs his life energy to revolve upward and downward around the 6 spinal centers, which correspond to the 12 astral signs of the zodiac. The symbolic cosmic man, the Kriya Yogi mentally directs his life energy to revolve upward and downward around the 6 spinal centers, which correspond to the 12 astrological signs of the zodiac, the symbolic cosmic man. 1/2 minute of revolution of energy around the sensitive spinal cord of man affects subtle progress in his evolution. That half minute of Kriya equates to 1 year of natural spiritual unfoldment. The astral system of a human being, with 12 by polarity, interconstellations revolving around the sun of the omnipresent spiritual eye, is interrelated with the physical sun and the 12 zodiacal signs. All men are thus affected by an inner and an outer universe. The ancient rishis discovered that man's earthly and heavenly environment in a series of 12-year cycles pushes him forward on his natural path. The scriptures aver that man requires 1,000,000 years of normal diseaseless evolution to perfect his human brain and attain cosmic consciousness. 1,000 kriyas practiced in 8.5 hours gives the yogi in 1 day the equivalent of 1,000 years of natural evolution. 365,000 years of evolution is 1 year. 365,000 years of evolution is 1 year. In 3 years, a Kriya Yogi can thus establish by intelligent self-effort the same result that nature brings to pass in 1,000,000 years. The Kriya shortcut, of course, can be taken only by deeply developed yogis. With the guidance of a guru, such yogis can carefully prepared their body and their brain to withstand the power generated by intensive practice. The Kriya beginner employs his yogic technique only 14 to 24 times, twice daily. A number of yogis achieve emancipation in 6 or 12 or 24 or 48 years. A yogi who dies before achieving full realization carries with him the good karma of his past Kriya effort. In his new life, he is naturally propelled towards his infinite goal. The body of the average man is like a 50-watt lamp, which cannot accommodate the 1,000,000,000 watts of power roused by excessive practice of Kriya. Through gradual and regular increase of the simple and foolproof methods of Kriya, man's body becomes astrally transformed day by day and finally fitted to express the infinite potentials of cosmic energy, which constitutes the first materially active expression of spirit. Kriya Yoga has nothing in common with the unscientific breathing exercises taught by a number of misguided zealots. Attempts to hold breath forcibly in the lungs are unnatural and decidedly unpleasant. Kriya practice, on the other hand, is accompanied from the very beginning by feelings of peace and soothing sensations of regenerative effect in the spine. The ancient yogic technique converts the breath into mind stuff. By spiritual advancement, one is able to cognize the breath as a material concept, as a mental concept, an act of mind, a dream breath. Okay, that's it for today. I'm in the middle of page 280. Goodbye.